supposed to
Hey, girly.
the cable, but it won't even want out. This is what keeps the cable tight, the inside one. So you get it loose, then you bring this up and you tighten it.
Okay.
Hey all, welcome to our April Lowell's Boat Shop update. I am the Executive Director, Graham McKay, bringing you all the happenings here at Lowell's. It's starting to get nice, not really. It was warm and then it snowed and now it's kind of warm again, but we did get our docks in. We got these three Mohonks in the shop right now that hopefully in 2 weeks we'll have out there up to Mohonk Mountain House. We're also closing in on, these are 2 of 3 oyster bars that are going down to Island Creek Oysters down in Duxbury. They're pretty good to us down there, so if you're gonna eat some oysters, give them a call. And so our first point of interest, we'll go over to this Anomaly Dory again, this Lunenburg Dory. So I put a whole new side on it here, and I actually used those galvanized clench nails, which is in keeping with what was originally used. So it didn't make sense to use nice copper rivets over here when the other side's all old, old galvy. So new galvy next to old galvy. Patched some holes. Over on this side, what we found was this garboard on the port side was split, and you see this fairly often, split right at the ends where it's the widest and you kind of have some cross-grain cut. And you do see this a lot with Banks Dories, I think because the whole side is swelling and shrinking, and it's tied together up here pretty stoutly with the gunnel and all that structure, and then it's tied to the bottom. And so the expansion joint actually, instead of the laps, becomes in the garboard here, and over time they'll pull themselves apart. Often, if given an opportunity, they'll swell up tight again, but this was pretty bad. So what I did was I took a circular saw and using this plank edge as my guide, I just ran it right along, which should have given us essentially a straight cut. It wasn't quite straight, but what it was fair. And so what I could do was take the straight edge on this plank and essentially clamp it down right into place. And so that's what I did. And so I made this new plank and we epoxied it with some biscuits in here to get it lined up, and then screwed it into the side of the bottom. And it took a little bit of doing to get everything aligned, and that's why you're seeing all of these, and that was to bring this plank out to the face of that plank so that it was in line. It was a little off kilter at a couple of points, and so we had to do this to bring it in. We put a bunch of holes in the boat doing so, and that is one thing, especially with a boat like this. It's going to be a work boat finish, it's going to be painted. You don't really have to worry so much about these little screw holes. You're just going to drill them and bung them. They'll get painted and it'll be fine. You could go through some kind of Rube Goldberg way to try to clamp this all up so that it worked and not put holes in the boat, but it just wouldn't be effective. And we actually do a lot of clamping this way with drywall screws, GRKs, and fender washers, just to pull planks in and do such like that until the caulking cures and the epoxy cures, and then you can take it all off and go back. So I'll go back in again, because this was done originally with galvanized 10-penny nails. I'll go back in and do the same thing, and it'll hold just fine. So again, this boat coming together looks like it's been through the ringer, but trust me, with a coat of paint, which you'll see next time, it's going to look fantastic. Moving along in here.
We're going to need to make a block. I had the dimensions written down.
Sitting on your behind again there?
You're going to need to make a block.
Conserving energy.
Yes.
You're going to need to make a block.
You got to use it if you conserve it. So.
A block that fits between here and here, with about a 1/4 inch gap, an 1/8 inch gap.
I don't know what they're doing.
And it's the same width, grain running front to back.
They're learning that there's a lot of ins and outs to these boats, and that they're not,
so
even when you're going to repair them,
it can't be
nothing
any
happens
thicker
quickly,
than
and it
these
takes
frames, and
quite a
it can
bit of
be made out
time.
of hardwood.
But
so that when we put the nuts on.
There's a lot of work being done ahead of putting planks back on. We're actually reusing all these pieces. The planks are in fine shape. They're cedar. We've had to repair the old fastener holes. That's been done, and they'll just, once they've got some new frames and such in here, those will go back in. And
yeah, so you gotta just get 7/8 or 3/4. So it's below.
Johnny Noon doing his thing.
One of the floorboards.
All right, coming in here, again, William, the star of fore and aft, has put this together, made it look good. We're going to wheel this, hopefully, out of the shop, maybe today or tomorrow, this weekend, free up some space. But this is our chase boat for our program. It's an Amesbury skiff. It was built here in 1986 and was donated back to us maybe a decade ago or more. And we use it to tow boats and chase boats around for the summer programs all summer. And it's a perfect handy boat for that. And then our shallop. So we just walked by a big hunk of wood out there, and that wood would sort of become famous, which is this pile of wood that was originally cut for the sailing navy, the U.S. sailing navy, the wooden navy. In the 1800s, it was brought to Charlestown Navy Yard. They kept it in floating pens at the Navy Yard so that it wouldn't dry out and crack before they wanted to use it. When we started to build Navy ships out of steel, then that became pretty much obsolete, and these timber pens were just hanging out, so they ended up just bulldozing dirt over the top of them, filling them in, and using the land. Well, about a decade ago, they went to build hospital down there, and they dig up this timber pen, and all this old white oak, live oak, huge pieces of ships like the Constitution came out of the ground, and they were just in the way. They had to get rid of them. So a lot of them went to the chipper before it got discovered. Well, someone figured out what it actually was, and it got saved. And so we have a little bit of that left over from the shallop restoration we did from the Mayflower II, and that is via Mystic Seaport, which got a lot of that wood for the Charles W. Morgan rebuild. And so that's a mouthful, but anyway, really old wood. It's basically petrified. It's been buried in a saline, muddy environment, anaerobic environment for 100 years, and it is hard as a rock. It smells, when you cut into it, it smells like a tire fire. It is pretty terrible. So back in here, I was looking at this with our boat builder, Jeff Lane, the other day, and it's a really bad setup having all these floors. The grain runs short across the bottom. It's not very strong. You got a limber hole up here, so the water can collect in this thing up to there and never get bailed out. And it's a problem area for a lot of reasons. So we decided that piece is actually perfectly shaped to put some dead wood in here. So we're going to kind of fit it up in here, have it run forward, take up this space, and then we'll end up trunneling through it with our trunnels when we fasten the floors and everything through the keel with our trunnels. For a piece of wood that's, was cut probably in the 1850s or 60s, and then was sitting floating in Boston Harbor for 20 or 30 years, and then got buried. It's got this surface checking on it, which is kind of what you'd expect. It's got a bit of a rough spot in it there, but when you get down to it, if you look at this kind of stuff, it is perfect. And it's completely solid. You would think that people love to come up to an old boat and flake off a piece of paint or something. Oh, look at that, dry rot. And you're like, no, it's wet rot. But in this case, if it's anaerobic, if there's no oxygen, then it doesn't decompose, and that is why we get the best preserved shipwrecks are those that are in an anaerobic environment. So.
Is the framework split? Third plank in.
In here, these guys are closing in on this dory. Because we have some nice, big, wide pine like this, we're able to make this dory in 3 planks. It would normally be 4. And you're pointing at something. I don't know what that is, but
Yeah,
that it's not long enough. That check.
Yeah.
Well, we got a couple inches to go up here. What does this look like back here?
Yeah, I was asking.
So we got a couple to give, right?
I was asking if it comes all the way up to here, if it's like here.
It's probably going to be somewhere in
If it
there.
was a little lower, that would give us a little more.
It's going to be in there.
Make it.
So why don't we scoot
Yeah,
this
that
thing
would
that way a little bit. And then the other thing you want to do is, see this sapwood? We're going to want to scoot this down until this sapwood all goes away. So I'm going to drop my end down a little bit first, and then let's scoot to you. Maybe keep going. Keep going. How about to there? Gotta hold it. All right, so now we got to figure out where the shear line is, right? Here's our little handy dandy piece of paper. So when I was telling you guys about the lining, on these boats, the plank widths are all dictated by these numbers. Fore, middle, and aft. In our case, this is laid out for 4 planks. We're doing it in 3. All we care about is where this top line is. So all you gotta do is add up all those numbers and get a total all the way along. So if I look at the mid, I got a 5, 6, 6, 7. So 11, 17, 24, right? Those 2 halves, that's 25. And 2 quarters is a half, so 25 and a half. So what I'm gonna do, my middle, is I'm gonna make a mark at 25 and a half. It's way up there. Forward, what have I got? 13 and 15 is 28. And then an inch and a half is 29 and a half, 30 and 7/8. 10, 16, 21, 28, 29 and 3/4. So I come straight up from the bottom. 29 and 3/4, that gets me there. Now what we're gonna do is trace the previous plank, which is a little difficult given the size of it. And then you're going to trace your frames. I'm going to trace the transom as well. So you're going to lay it flat on this bench, so let's make sure the bench is all clear. So we got a bit of a thing happening here. What is that thing? See how much heartwood we got down here under our spiling?
Yeah.
And we're pretty good. We got one there, so we're out of the sapwood there. But our middle one is in the sap. And I got a feeling where it dips down back there, we're going to hit the sap. So here's what I'm thinking. Let's grab this guy. And we'll take this. And we'll line it up on our line. We'll trace the other side of it, which is moving that line down to account for the lap because it overlaps. Take your best guess. What do they call that in math, where you get a bunch of dots and you got to...
The line of best fit.
Is that what they call it?
Yeah. Actually,
They're not much for pros, are they, the mathematicians? What's our move with the lines up top? What we're going to do is take this guy, put the top edge on the line, and you're going to want some nails or some screws or something. You put this edge on the line and then trace this bottom edge. You're going to move it down as much as we move that down, right? Top edge of that's pretty much dead straight. Okay? Since we don't have a batten long enough, what do you think you're going to do? I'm going to move these marks down to there, right? The thickness of this batten. You got 2 marks. I'll give you a third. What's that? Well, how do you make a straight line, a long straight line on a piece of wood? Now you can do that half.
Yeah.
Yep.
Didn't quite mark.
You see how light it is? You can kind of see it. So now you can reel this thing in. And then you can go back with the batten and darken it right up so you don't lose it. And there's your plank. And then it's also a great idea to put your little bird's beaks on the ones you're going to actually cut. And then dig it? Yeah. Okay. So I would take a batten, I would darken that chalk line up, and then here's the real kicker. When you go to cut this thing, what are you going to cut it with?
Circular saw.
How?
Like that.
Show your thinking. Here's my thought bubble. Here's my thinking.
Track.
You're going to put underneath, you're going to put
Yeah.
pieces of wood to get it off the bench and set the blade so it's barely through. Yeah, you're going to cut pretty close to that line. You're going to want to cut here like a ½ inch outside that line. Leave extra. When we,
The line.
yep, leave the line. When we go to put the inwale in, we'll put it, that's why you want to darken this line. We're going to use that as our guide for the inwale, and then we'll just shave the top of the shop of the shear plank right off to it. Thus almost concludes our tour. Upcoming, we have on May 11th, our fall haul from last year, which is now our spring launch. This year, we'll have a little cookout on the lawn here. We'll have a rowing race on the river, some live music, some eats, things like that. So May 11th, like 12 to 3, come on down and party with us. And then a couple days later, I'm gonna go missing to an extent for a couple months. I'm gonna go be an educator on board the Bowdoin, the schooner Bowdoin, which is owned by Maine Maritime Academy, and it's a 90-foot wooden schooner that was built in 1920 for the Macmillan Polar Expedition. And we are going to sail up to the Arctic Circle. So I'm going to be gone for 2 months doing that program and that voyage, but I am going to be videoing back in and keeping you updated and showing you where I am and what I'm doing. So do follow along and tell your friends to follow our YouTube channel. That'll all be up there, and sign up for our email newsletters because all that information comes through there. And then your most direct and updated thing is probably to follow us on Instagram. You'll get far more frequent updates there, but you won't be able to miss it if you're a frequent watcher. And I hope to see you next time. Maybe next time I'll be on a boat. Nails, and you would be shocked at how much these galvanized nails hold. We could hardly get these out. Way to be smooth. Way to be smooth. We'll just edit this video. It'll be fine.
Everything's fine. Everything's fine.
Yep. Nobody saw it. Nobody saw it.